I want to talk about AI in higher education for just a moment because it's been a whole lot of nonsense and caterwauling. And like a lot of news stories right now, it's either doom and gloom that we're all doomed and the kids are all dumb and nobody's going to learn anything, or it's AI is going to revolutionize everything and everybody's going to be perfect and it's going to be a lot easier. And we know neither one of those are true, but everything, to get clicks and content, you got to go to the extremes. So can we go to the middle ground on this a little bit? So, if you don't know my background, let's start there. I went back to community college last year. I'm in culinary school at the community college. I really enjoyed it. And community college is great perspective on this because we have everything from high school connect students to senior citizens, special needs kids, old military vets like me, people with middle age crises might also be me, we'll see, and a lot of regular college students too. But it's very working class. It's a lot of people, you know, working class, middle class, lower class trying to get up, that kind of an environment. It's a little different than, like, say, a Columbia or an Ivy League or somewhere like that, just because it's different people with different circumstances. By the way, you need both of those. We need all of the above education. But how does AI go into that, and how does it go into education, especially higher education right now? Because I've seen a lot of news stories, I'm reading a lot of policy on it, but I'm also experiencing it firsthand as a student and somebody who's been doing college on and off pretty much for 25 years now. I think I got a little bit of perspective on it. I first got kind of clued into how tenuous this AI thing was actually a couple of years ago. One of my best friends in the world, Bobby Cam, I grew up with him. I've known him since sixth grade. He lives in Costa Rica now, and his kids are down there. His family's down there. He teaches English to kids in Costa Rica up in the jungle. And a couple of years ago, before this even started going nuts online, he was the first one to kind of tell me, he's like, man, these kids are just using AI constantly to cheat on English. And he's like, well, of course, as a native English speaker, he could pick it out pretty quick that they were cheating and using AI, which is interesting. But if the Costa Rican kids in the jungles are using it to try to swerve their American English teacher, and that was several years ago, it's probably gotten worse now. And I see that online and I see that in my college classes as well. But let's start with what AI is and isn't. What we're being pitched AI to a great extent, especially the chatbot models, those are large language models. They're just compiling information, they're souped up search engines, and they have a purpose. And our school has a pretty good policy. They just updated it a couple of months ago on what you can and can't do for AI, what you can use it for and not use it for. And I think that's a good place to start with a practical discussion on AI and how it's used in higher education. Now, one of the things I've always believed in, I've done this as a parent and I try to apply it to myself, is you want to prepare kids for the world that as it actually is, not as you think it should be or want it to be. Now, I stole that from my dad, who was a career educator. Both of my parents were teachers for 35 plus years, public school system. And then my dad was also a principal of a private school during his retirement. That's one of the things he always said. He's like, we need to teach kids for the world as it is, not as how you hoped it to be. So while I'm sympathetic to people who are like, we just need to go back to books, pens, and paper, we need to get rid of all screens in school at all times. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but the world they live in, they're going to be all screens all the time. Maybe we should prepare them for it. I'll give you a perfect example. I have seen it happen where somebody came in unprepared. They can just pick up their phone, go, Siri, give me this. And it's whatever their assignment was. And within 15 seconds, they had something they could present to the teacher. Now, that's cheating. That's wrong. That got caught and that got dealt with. But that's also the world we live in, where this newer generations, where technology and online are their native language and their native ecosystem. That's how they think. They don't really see anything wrong with that unless you teach them a little bit differently. And trying to teach them some kind of technology abstinence or technology is bad, that's not going to wash. I'll tell you that, as being the parents of 4 different kids over the last 20 odd years. So how do we use this? Well, let's go back to what I just started with. Prepare people for the world as it actually exists. So, for example, how do you use a AI or a large language model without it becoming plagiarism, which is something I take seriously, both as a writer and as a person of integrity. I've been writing publicly for the better part of the 8 or 9 years now. I've been published nationally a couple of times. I've done pretty well as an amateur writer by all accounts. I'm really attuned to that. I would never use AI to write a piece. I would not just put it in a chat bot and let it spit it out. I don't even like using it for research, because what's happening with these large language models to a great extent is they want to make you happy. And if they start, you use them more and more and more, they're going to tailor more and more to telling you what you want to hear. And now you're not getting good research. So you can't even really do it that. Can you use it to kind of get a big bundle of information and start parsing through it? Sure, you can. So, one of the big debates we've been hearing in the school level, at the community college level where I work and live right now, and it's kind of eating up a big chunk of my life. One of the big debates is, what can you use it for? What can you not use it for? So, if you take, and here's the argument, if you take work that you've already done, but you're just using AI and a large language model to compile it and present it differently, that's not plagiarism or cheating because you did all the work. It's just compiling it. That's kind of the gray area where this stuff starts getting really messy in a hurry. Because I can see both sides of that argument. I can see, as somebody who's been, an instructor at various levels in my professional career, as a manager professional career, somebody that's trained people and really enjoyed training people. I can see the debate of that as like, well, you're not really learning it if you're taking the last step, the most important step, the presentation step, and letting it do it for you. However, practically, there's also some good ways to use that. One way we are allowed to use AI, for example, is if we have a cooking lab, for example, and we have to have a production schedule and we have to have all our recipes. And your recipes are not the recipes you're cooking, because you have to take your recipes and you have to break them down. You have to scale them for whatever you're assigned. They do this on purpose to make sure you know how to do it and say, well, here's a recipe for 20, make it for 6. Or here's a recipe with 18 servings, make it for 25, or whatever the case may be. You can take the recipes, you can take what you're doing, you can take all your prep work, throw it in a large language model, AI, or a chat bot, and say, give me a workflow. And you get a workflow. And the workflow is really easy to use. That's allowable under the rules of our school and how we're taught. You can put it, then take that workflow and say, hey, put this in a spreadsheet and present it and say, here's the spreadsheet of my production plan. That's allowable because you did the work. You utilized AI in a way that you're probably going to use it in the real world to do it. You didn't cheat the system. It didn't do it for you. It augmented it, and you just tell them, yeah, I put this in a large language model. This is what copped out. This is my workflow. You still have to go do it. And that's the difference. Now, if you're doing something like an English class where it's writing your paper for you, obviously you're back into things like, plagiarism and stealing and intellectual properties and things like that. So that might be a little bit different. But in the real world, in the next 5 to 10 years, and I've already watched this happen, a lot of people in a lot of their jobs, they're just going to grab their phone and ask Siri or pop it into Google and say, how do I do this, and do it. So you also need to teach them how to utilize the tools properly after they learn how to do it. Now, how does this relate to higher education? There's a lot of people that's going to say what I just said is dumbing down education. Well, we're not learning reading, writing, arithmetic. We're not learning the classical educations. Look, I had basically a classical education because my dad's a Greekophile and he's big on it. He did a sabbatical in Greece one whole summer when I was a kid. Like, he was all into that. I know all the Stoic stuff. I know all the Greek philosophy stuff. I know all the Roman stuff. I got the secondhand classical education because he made sure he was big on Socratic method. You never got a straight answer out of my father. He's going to answer a question with a question, see if you knew the thing. So I'm sensitive and I'm sympathetic to people that just want every single person to have a classical education. But if we're going to scream about the trades being down and we need people to get into HVAC and we need people to get into, by the way, AI servicing is going to be the new trade, like HVAC, like electricians, like mechanicals, because you need a lot of technicians to keep those data centers running. That's something my community college is all over right now. It's one of the fastest growing things they're pushing. They're like, yep, we're going to provide the workforce for these things. Now you're going to have the engineering levels and the developer levels, but you need a lot of people that just know how to plug servers in and keep the HVAC running and keep the coolant systems working. AI is going to be a new tech field for service level workers, and they're working on that. So how do you put these things all together? Because in the news media, we just hear doom and gloom that AI is going to wipe out all the jobs. It's not. And then you hear the doom and gloom that it's making all the students dumber. It's not. Here's the problem with human nature. People that were going to cheat are going to cheat anyway. If they're going to use AI to cheat, they're going to use AI to cheat other ways. They're probably just going to cheat. You have to deal with human nature. You have to tell them no. You have to punish them if they're cheating. But we do need to have an adult conversation of what is and isn't cheating with the new technology. Let's go to that gray area we just talked about. If you're putting all these people together and saying, this is the work I did, I'm just using the AI to format it and present it, is that plagiarism or not? And I don't have a good, clear answer for you. I could tell you I do. A lot of people say just doing that step isn't, but this is the world we live in now. Again, are we going to prepare kids and students and adults that are in school for the world as it is, or how you hope it will be? If the world they live in has Google, you probably ought to teach them how to handle Google. And now that we have AI and large language models, you probably need to teach them how to use that and use them ethically and use them effectively to better themselves and better their jobs and better their careers. Again, I'm in a community college environment. This is a lot of working class and lower and a little bit upper people. These are people that are definitely in school to improve their lives. A lot of them have bad jobs they're trying to get into. A lot of them have no jobs that they're trying to get a job. A lot of them have really diverse and very challenging backgrounds. And it's a great environment to learn in because they really want to improve their lives. That's why they're there. They're not getting some kind of degree that's just going to sit on the wall and look cool. That's not the people I'm in school with. And those people definitely want to use this new technology to better themselves, to make them more marketable to the workplace going forward. I know one person I'm in school with right now, they work at a distribution center for a major company, one of the biggest companies with the biggest distribution networks. And they said one of the things they told us is we want you to learn AI. So when you come back to work with your degree program, this is not a culinary school, this is one of my math classes. When you come back, we want you to have that skill set. Tell us about it. And then we're going to integrate it. This is also why you're seeing some of the big companies starting to talk about running their own schools instead of getting just college grads because they're not knowing what they're getting. This AI thing is freaking people out and it's kind of breaking people's brains. But one of the nice things and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today in a practical level was because if you're in schools, and I've got a kid getting ready to go off to college, I got one kid that's in college, I've got an older kid that's already graduated college. I've kind of seen this from all angles now. And I've been an online college student most of my adult life. If you're going to really deal with this stuff, we need to have some perspective on we're not just setting rules for right now, and we're not setting rules for how it's always been, where you used to do, the blue book note tests and essay tests. God, I'm glad those things are mostly gone. But we can use some of the old stuff for some of the new stuff. I'm taking a management class, and one of the things we're doing in the management class is when you go to take a test, they've added more and more essay questions to fight against people cheating with AI. Because if you're doing an essay question, and they can tell whether you're clicking off the server or not, or the tab or whatever you call it, because it's a secure testing method. They know if you're cheating and they want to know if you essay it. Even in my cooking classes, we got about 4 or 5 weeks to finals. We just went over in my baking class how we're going to do finals. And part of the finals is you have to do a presentation. They didn't always do a presentation. One of the reasons they're doing it, though, is because people can use the technology so much. They want to make sure you knew it. So you're going to stand in front of the chefs and not only present your food, but you have to have a presentation ready to talk them through what you learned in the class, how you learned it. You can do a PowerPoint. They do accommodations. If you have a situation, if you're not good at public speaking, you can do a PowerPoint and walk through it that way. But you have to do a presentation, and that's a modification based off of the AI stuff so that they know you know the material. In other words, there should be some very practical common sense stuff to dealing with AI in higher education. And I think my school is doing a pretty good job for the most part about it. I know some people that have used like a Chat GPT. I use Gemini every now and then for things. Mostly I use Gemini for recipes, honestly. I use AI for recipes to kind of put the crazy ideas together, see if they work, and then I go play with them. I don't really use it for writing and research because, again, it's not super accurate, and I've got a pretty good system of accurate research for stuff. But the thing with using the chat bots and saying that's education, it's real. If you're going to be honest about it, it's the evolutionary step from Google. And it's the evolutionary step from the encyclopedias when I was a kid that Google turned into. And it's an evolutionary step from the encyclopedias from not having anything at all and not knowing anything. This is just a natural evolution. So at some point, we do need to do guardrails and we do need to do rules without we have to stop the buggy whip factory from going out of business because all the buggy whips are gone, which is what too much of the AI stuff has turned into. I'm going to loop back to this because I think this is the point folks are missing. The folks that are like, we need to just, K through 12 all the way through your master's degree. You should never use anything but a pad and a pen and a pencil and a book. I understand what you're getting at, but going backwards doesn't help us. We can take things like give people essay tests once in a while. We can take things like, can you read and write on a practical level? There's certain people I know in Kentucky, they're pushing cursive writing again. I took cursive. My handwriting is horrible. I don't know if that makes me a better pundit or not, that my handwriting is really bad, although I have mechanical, physical issues based on all that. because my right hand, I've had to learn how to write with my right hand twice since I learned how to do it as a kid because of injuries and TBIs and other things. Do you put that in an educational bucket and apply it to the AI stuff? Or do we just understand that we're in the flow of history and AI is the next step? Now, I'm a curmudgeon. I don't like new stuff. I am cynical about everything. I am really bad about stuff and just being okay, I don't want to deal with that. So I'm trying to grow as a person with this AI stuff. And I know a lot of people that I trust who are way more high on it than me, and I try to listen to them and hear it. I think we need to have policy guardrails on some of this stuff. I think we definitely need to have some ethical discussions and moral discussions on it. But AI isn't ruining our morals. We have good morals, you're going to have good AI morals. If you have good integrity, you're going to have good AI integrity. So there's always that human element of this that education just is never going to fix. One other thing, that perspective wise, that being in community college and the AI and higher education, and I've got a kid that's selecting her college right now. She's graduating. She'll be going to, I'm looking at trying to get her moved in. She's going to a pretty high end school in New York City. I'm trying to deal with all that and understand it. And I looked up their AI stuff because it's a very intensive program that they're doing, and they have very strict rules, much stricter than what my community college does on it. Is this one thing where engineering and architects and mathematical majors are going to have one set of rules, and the classical liberal arts and English people, writers, are they going to have a different set of rules for AI because it's different? And then the mechanical deal, is HVAC people going to have looser rules because it's easier for them to use AI to try to figure out a complex system real quick? And then is it going to be different for like culinary, like us, where it's like, I need to find some recipes. Let me take these 6 recipes or these 4 photos of recipes and throw it in AI and see what it spits back at me. Are all those groups going to need different set of rules at an academic and professional level? I think so. I don't think it's going to be a one size fits all, because none of this stuff, the whole point of large learning models, language models, if I could speak, maybe I need to go back to school. The whole point of that is to take a big bunch of information and then be able to siphon it to an individual person based on what they're searching. That's kind of the theory behind that, especially the commercial theory of, oh, you're going to pay us money to get this world of information tailor-made just for you. Well, there's good and bad of that. And if that's going to be the model, the large language model of AI, there's good and bad to that. Is it catering to just tell me what I want to hear after a while? Is it learning my habits just so it can tell me what I want to hear? But if I'm doing a recipe and I just want to know if the sriracha sauce goes with the butter sauce, goes with the potato, goes with the fish, that's probably pretty ethical. If I'm going to write a big paper for a master's thesis and use mostly AI to write it, that's not ethical. But we understand the differences. So maybe, like with a lot of things with technology, this stuff needs to be a lot more all of the above and a whole lot less doomsaying. And also, on the other end of the spectrum, a whole lot less pie in the sky. This is going to fix everything, because no, AI is not going to replace a college education or a good high school education or even a good middle school education. It cannot. That's not what it's designed to do. That's not what it's capable of doing. There's this overarching thing in the information age, the internet age, the social media age, that I don't think we've had a larger conversation about enough. In the palm of our hands and our phones now, since the iPhones and smartphones first started coming out, we have the entire depth and breadth of all of human knowledge within a couple of clicks, or you can just ask for it in the palm of your hand at all times. And we haven't really had the overarching conversation of how much that has changed us and changed society, that we have literally anything you ever want to know about anything, but how do you get it and apply it to your life, even though you have the technology to get a hold of it? That's the piece that we're missing here. And I think a lot of the AI in higher education and AI in high schools and AI in college, I know they're doing the whole thing of like, well, putting computers in school was a terrible mistake. Look, I was there when we first put computers in schools in the 80s and 90s. I remember being in 4th grade, and you have your little classroom jobs. My classroom job was to boot up the Tandy 1000 or whatever it was, because you had to put the disk in and wait 5 minutes. Then you had to come back and put the second disk in to finish booting it up. That was my job in 4th grade. And then we could play Oregon Trail later, but that's another story for another day. I've been here for pretty much that full evolution to where my kids all have Chromebooks when they were in high school. I get it. I understand it. But again, Going backwards isn't going to help us in this endeavor. With the AI stuff, a lot of the debate we're hearing is the same debate we heard about laptops for every kid, same debate we heard about computers in schools in the first place, same debate we had about TV, same debate we had about the internet, same debate we had about MTV, same debate we had about anything else. Can we cut through the fear mongering, and can we cut through the over promising and find the happy middle ground where people can actually use these tools? I think where AI is different, and this is something that my friend Bobby down in the jungles of Costa Rica turned me on to. You have Spanish speaking kids trying to cheat their English by learning AI, and that was a couple of years ago. It's probably even worse now. There's a desire for learning baked into what they're doing. I know a lot of people see that as cheating, but it's also a desire to learn easier. So part of the answer for all of this is going to be at an educational level, but also at a parenting level, and also as a peer level. If you're a supervisor in a career field, or you're a worker or a coworker, or whatever the case may be, maybe it's a peer pressure thing, to take the desire to make it better, faster, quicker, and make it not so much a lazy thing, but an efficiency thing of learning all that knowledge that we can get a hold of and applying it to whatever you need to apply it to, while maintaining moral and ethics at the same time. And again, if you didn't have good moral and ethics, AI isn't going to fix that. It's just going to make it worse. So maybe we need to upgrade one of our core principles here. So money, power, alcohol, and social media always reveal eventually what people really are. AI is going to do the same thing. If you're going to use AI, how you use it is just going to reveal what kind of a person you are. Are you using it to make your stuff a little better, a little tighter, a little better informed, a little better end product to whatever you're presenting? Then that's what you're going to use AI for. If you're using AI to just shortcut everything and try to look smarter than you really are because you didn't want to put the work in, AI is going to do that. But here's the trick to all this. At some point, it's going to come out. We joke about AI slop on the internet, but I know my teachers. I just had this conversation because I had my academic advising for the summer and fall yesterday. So I got to sit down one-on-one with my main chef instructor for quite a while. And one of the things we were talking about, she was laughing. She's like, the cheating with AI is funny because you almost always get caught because it just doesn't match up. And you can tell it's not right because you can tell that it's different than what they normally do. And especially in a cooking environment, you got somebody who's been cooking 20, 30 years. There's a language within the language that AI is just never going to be able to pick up on the nuances. And I know the AI companies are all like, well, eventually you'll never be able to tell the difference. And I know the AI slob's like, look at this action movie scene. You can't tell. Yeah, we can tell the difference. Now, maybe they get so good at some point you can't tell, but I doubt it, because at some point, the old argument that IBM used to teach people is like, you can't blame the computer because the computer can't do anything it wasn't told to do. AI is a lot bigger with a lot more information, but the same thing. It's not creating anything new. It's just recycling. And people at the academic level, even at the community college level, you can tell they're just recycling. Now, if you want to do, and this is one of my dad's rants from his high school teaching days, if you want to do the thing of like education is way too much regurgitation anyway, I'm down for the struggle on that one. We can talk about that all day. But until you change that, this is what it is. So AI in higher education, do we need to be doom and gloom? No, we do not need to be doom and gloom. Do we need to be overly flowery, like, some chatbot is going to replace K through 12 education and a higher education and a master's level education and a PhD level education? No, it is not. Is it going to change how we do all those things? Yeah, probably. Especially because it's going to change us, the people, and how we view things and how we do things. And that's okay. So should we go forward with a little bit more courage and a little less fear? Absolutely, we should. And we should treat this the way it needs to be treated. AI and large language model learning and whatever comes next, because that'll be out eventually. It's just like the smartphone, just like computers in school, just like iPads, just like the pen and pad. Remember, at one point, the ballpoint pen was revolutionary educational material, right? We didn't have to use quill and ink anymore. This is just our new thing. Think of it this way. It's still just a tool. And like, I can take a hammer and I can build a home for the homeless, or I can beat a homeless person to death. The hammer doesn't care which one you do because it's just a tool. It's an inanimate object. It's all based on how I use it and my intentions and my morality and my standards and my integrity, how I use that hammer. And AI is going to be the exact same thing. So when you're doing policy and you're doing advocacy for what AI in higher education is and isn't, I think we need to stick to our core values on a lot of this stuff. Can you regulate human behavior? Not really. And the more you do it, the worse it's going to get. Should we put in some guardrails to handle people that get outside the lines of what they should be doing with bad human behavior? Absolutely. And that's where the policy world comes in. Policy should be guardrails, not a monorail, because monorails are tyranny. Despite the song on The Simpsons, you need guardrails to keep people between them, but you need to let people have some wiggle room between the two things. I think my school, my community college, very well-run community college, has done a very, very good job with AI. I think they've told us, hey, use it to this level. You can use it to do this, this, and this. You can put your own work into it to get a product out and say, this is my own work, that you got to disclaim it. And different teachers have different rules a little bit. This is what I did. Here's the work I put in. It's like everything else. Show your work. I'm in a remedial math class. I'm tired of hearing that. Show your work. Hey, I used AI, but here's my work. Here's what it came out. Here's how I interpreted it. Here's how I'm presenting it. And I think that's going to be the way forward, because you're never going to put the horse back in the barn of being able to pick up your phone and go, hey, Siri, give me a spreadsheet on this, and it pops it out. That's happening. And where you can tell ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever system you're using, hey, give me this, and then make it a spreadsheet, and then make me a PowerPoint and put it all together. There's going to be mistakes you're going to have to fix, but that's not coming back. That's out there now. And if you're one of those sickos that actually like doing Excel spreadsheets, number one, I pray for your soul, because there's something wrong with you, because I hate them things. But number two is, I'm not sure that's a bad thing, because when I was a manager, that was a giant time suck, having to do spreadsheets and PowerPoints and meeting stuff. If you can efficiency that thing, that probably have made me a better worker and a better manager. So is it bad? No. Do we need to have ethics? Yes. People like to beat up on higher education. People like to beat up on the kids. People like to yell that the kids are just bad and they're dumb and they're lazy. No, we did all that too. We just did it differently with different technology. I think it's very important in this AI debate and the higher education debate. And I'm very thankful that I'm in school with everybody from high school kids, the seniors. I have special needs people I'm in school with. I get to watch their struggles. I'm in a lot of peers, there's other veterans that I know that have similar situations. My baking class, me and one other girl, are both cancer patients. So we've been talking about that because we both missed time this semester dealing with our cancer situation. You meet a little bit of everybody. And I think that diversity is a healthy thing. And I'm glad I'm getting to see that in real time and then come and talk about this debate on the platforms I have, because I still think this is going to be a net good. I think the AI overlords who are just, on a fundraising rush to get as much money as they possibly can, I don't think they're healthy. But I think the technology is going to be healthy. I do think it's going to be a little bit of .comism. I think you're going to have a little bit. I think we're getting overpromised and overstimulated. I think it's going to crash. But then out of that is whatever it's going to become. Remember, the internet, we had Amazon right before that, but Amazon came out of that a better company. Microsoft came out of that a better company. And a lot of the .com companies that weren't really good companies, they didn't survive it. I think you're going to see that with AI. I think you're going to have an adjustment period, whether you want to call it a crash or not, coming, and then whatever AI is going to be will reveal itself after that, because that's going to be the refining fire that cleans a lot of this mess up. At the academic level and parenting level, I think we just need to teach the usual. Teach ethics, teach morals, and understand that is where the human element is always going to come into this thing. As always, thank you for giving us the most precious thing you have, Heard YouTube channel, the podcast. This will all be coming out. HeardTellMedia.com, one-stop shopping for everything. We have important ones coming up on the economy and the UK coming up on Monday. Watch for those lives. I'm Andrew Donaldosn. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.